When we talk about self-esteem, most people immediately think of confidence, appearance, or how assertive someone seems in their daily life. But Carl Jung, one of the most profound thinkers of the 20th century, believed that self-esteem runs much deeper than these surface-level traits. He saw it not as a mask we wear, but as the natural consequence of knowing who we truly are and valuing ourselves accordingly. This video will take you on a long but rewarding journey into that secret: how to boost your self-esteem in ways that last, how to align yourself with your inner worth, and how that naturally allows you to attract only what you truly deserve in life. By the time we are done, you will understand not only what self-esteem really is in Jungian psychology, but also how it shapes your relationships, your decisions, and the kind of life you invite into your reality. We will begin by exploring the illusion of self-esteem that most of us are taught, how society conditions us to measure our value by external approval, achievements, or material success. Then we will uncover Jung's view of the true self, the shadow, and how unacknowledged parts of our psyche quietly sabotage our self-image. After that, we'll discuss how authentic self-esteem is built, not through perfection or comparison, but through integrating every part of ourselves. We will look into how this transformation changes the energy we radiate, and why that attracts different kinds of people and opportunities into our lives. Finally, we'll reflect on practical steps inspired by Jung's ideas that you can begin to practice today, steps that bring you closer to yourself and ensure that your relationships, your career, and your inner world reflect what you actually deserve, not what your fears or insecurities have been attracting. So, let's begin at the root of the issue. Most of us grow up learning that self-esteem is tied to what we achieve or how others see us. A child receives praise for good grades, approval for following the rules, and affection when behaving in ways that meet parental or societal expectations. Over time, the child learns a simple equation: if I do what others want, I am loved. If I fail or go against expectations, I am unworthy. This conditioning quietly follows us into adulthood, making us believe that our worth depends on external markers: our career, our looks, our income, our popularity. But Jung would call this a false self. It is the persona, the mask we wear for the world, carefully crafted to earn approval. The problem with this mask is that it's fragile. If you lose your job, if your appearance changes, if your relationship ends, your sense of self collapses because it was never rooted in your own core. And so, you may attract relationships or situations that reflect this shaky foundation. If you don't believe you're inherently worthy, you unconsciously allow others to undervalue you, or you settle for less than you deserve because deep inside, you don't feel you are enough. Jung pointed out that until we confront this illusion and reclaim our true self, our lives will be ruled by these invisible patterns. Now here comes the fascinating part. Jung believed that within us exists a true self, something deeper than the mask. But standing between the mask and the true self is what he called the shadow. The shadow contains everything about ourselves we've rejected, denied, or pushed away. It might be anger, fear, desire, vulnerability, ambition, or even joy. For example, a person who was told as a child to always be nice might repress their anger, convincing themselves they are a good person who never gets upset. On the surface, this seems admirable, but beneath it lies resentment, suppressed emotions, and a feeling of being walked over. This person may find themselves attracting people who exploit their kindness because their shadow, their unacknowledged anger, keeps leaking into their relationships in unhealthy ways. So, what does this have to do with self-esteem? Everything. Because until we accept the fullness of who we are, including the parts we're ashamed of or afraid of, we can never truly respect ourselves. We are only respecting the mask, the persona, and masks crack. Real self-esteem is born when we integrate the shadow, when we can look at ourselves honestly and say, I am not perfect, I am not flawless, but I am whole. And that wholeness makes me worthy. Think about it for a moment. Imagine two people. The first is someone who always tries to appear confident, successful, and unbothered. They go out of their way to impress others, hiding every flaw. The second is someone who knows they have flaws, who admits when they are wrong, who has faced their fears and learned to live with them. Who do you think radiates real confidence? It's the second person, because they are not playing a game. They have nothing to hide. Their esteem doesn't rise or fall with every external judgment, because it's rooted inside themselves. When you begin to build this kind of inner foundation, something remarkable happens. You start to attract differently. You no longer resonate with relationships that drain you or environments that exploit you, because now, on an unconscious level, you are saying, I know my worth, and I will only allow what matches that worth. People who sense weakness or insecurity can no longer find an easy way in, because your boundaries are firm and natural, and opportunities that once seemed out of reach start appearing. Not because the world suddenly changed, but because you changed the signal you're sending out. Jung described this transformation as a kind of individuation, the process of becoming whole and integrated. He argued that when we are fragmented, we unconsciously project our unresolved issues onto others. For instance, if you secretly doubt your intelligence, you might attract partners or colleagues who belittle you, confirming your hidden belief. But when you integrate and accept yourself, those projections fade and you stop drawing those patterns into your life. Self-esteem, then, is not simply about feeling good about yourself. It is about becoming aligned with your inner truth, and once that happens, your external world begins to mirror it. But how does one begin this journey? Jung's path always started with awareness. You cannot change what you refuse to see. This means noticing your own patterns. When do you shrink back? When do you overcompensate? When do you tolerate less than you deserve? Each of these moments is a clue pointing to a shadow you haven't faced. For example, if you find yourself always seeking validation from others, the hidden shadow may be a fear of rejection you've carried since childhood. If you find yourself drawn to people who undervalue you, it may be because, deep down, you've internalized the belief that your needs are not important. Once you bring these shadows into awareness, the next step is acceptance. This doesn't mean indulging destructive behaviors, but it means saying to yourself, yes, I feel this fear. Yes, I sometimes doubt myself. Yes, I sometimes get angry or jealous. Instead of denying these emotions, you allow them space. In doing so, you take away their secret power. The shadow thrives in silence and shame. When you acknowledge it openly, it no longer controls you from the dark. This acceptance is the seed of true self-esteem. It's the moment you stop trying to be the perfect version of yourself and begin honoring the real version. And paradoxically, this makes you stronger, not weaker. Because when someone criticizes you, it doesn't crush you. You already know your flaws, and you accept them. When someone praises you, it doesn't inflate you unrealistically either, because your sense of worth is steady. You've found balance. And here lies the secret Jung pointed to. People are naturally drawn to this kind of balanced energy. We might not always be able to explain why, but when someone has done the work of integrating their shadow, they feel grounded, magnetic, and authentic. You trust them because they trust themselves. They don't need to prove anything, and that makes them powerful. This is the essence of attracting only what you deserve. It's not about demanding from others, but about embodying a level of self-respect that quietly communicates, "This is my standard." If you reflect on your own life, you may notice that times when your self-esteem was low were also times when you attracted people or situations that matched that low frequency. Perhaps you accepted poor treatment in a relationship because you didn't believe you could do better. Perhaps you stayed in a job that drained you because you doubted your ability to find something more fulfilling. These were not coincidences. They were reflections of your inner state. The good news is that the opposite is also true. As you raise your self-esteem, as you integrate your shadow and honor your whole self, the external world gradually shifts to reflect this higher state. Of course, this is not a quick fix. Jung himself warned that individuation is a lifelong journey. It requires courage, patience, and a willingness to see parts of yourself you'd rather ignore. But every step you take brings freedom. Freedom from the need for approval. Freedom from toxic cycles. Freedom from the fear that you are not enough. And in that freedom, self-esteem flourishes naturally. One of the biggest obstacles people face when trying to build their self-esteem is comparison. We live in a world that constantly invites us to compare ourselves to others, whether through social media, professional achievements, or even in the quiet conversations of daily life. You see someone's highlight reel online and instantly feel like you are falling behind. You notice a colleague receiving recognition while your efforts go unnoticed, and a voice in your head whispers, "You're not enough." Jung would say that this voice is not really you. It is the internalized voice of your shadow, shaped by your early conditioning and unresolved insecurities. Comparison robs us of the ability to see our own uniqueness. It keeps us chasing someone else's path instead of living our own. Jung's concept of individuation is the antidote to this. Individuation means becoming yourself fully, not a copy of another, not a mask for approval, but the true person you were meant to be. When you begin walking that path, comparison loses its grip because you realize there is no competition in authenticity. No one else can live your exact story, embody your exact strengths, or carry your exact soul. But here's where it gets interesting. The reason comparison feels so painful is that it often points to a hidden desire within you. For example, if you envy someone's success, the envy is not just negativity. It's your shadow signaling that you have untapped potential, a part of you longing to be expressed. If you feel insecure about another person's confidence, it might be your psyche's way of saying, you too have confidence buried within you. You're just not allowing it to surface. Instead of dismissing comparison or drowning in it, Jung would encourage us to use it as a mirror. Ask yourself, what is this feeling showing me about what I've disowned in myself? By doing this, you transform jealousy into a doorway for growth. The more you reclaim these disowned parts, the more your self-esteem expands. Instead of shrinking when you see someone shine, you begin to think, if it's possible for them, it's possible for me too. You stop viewing others as threats and start seeing them as reminders of what's waiting to awaken within you. This is the difference between shallow confidence and deep self-esteem. Shallow confidence tries to outshine others. Deep self-esteem celebrates others while standing firmly in its own light. Another crucial element Jung highlighted is the relationship between self-esteem and the unconscious. We often believe that our conscious thoughts and decisions shape our lives. But Jung revealed that what truly shapes us is the vast unconscious beneath the surface. Our fears, unresolved traumas, and hidden beliefs quietly influence the choices we make, the people we attract, and the limits we place on ourselves. If unconsciously you believe you're unworthy of love, you might repeatedly find yourself in relationships where you're undervalued. If you carry an unconscious belief that money is dangerous or shameful, you may sabotage your financial opportunities without even realizing why. This is why Jung insisted that self-awareness is not a luxury, it's survival. To boost self-esteem in any lasting way, you must look inward, uncover those unconscious beliefs, and bring them to light. This doesn't mean obsessing over your flaws. It means becoming curious about your patterns. Why do you keep ending up in the same situations? Why do the same types of people appear in your life? Why do you react so strongly to certain triggers? Each of these questions is a rope leading into the depths of your unconscious. And the more you pull on those ropes, the more you uncover about yourself. As this self-discovery deepens, you start seeing the direct link between your inner world and the outer reality you experience. Self-esteem, then, is not just about how you feel about yourself in the mirror. It is about how your inner alignment sets the tone for every aspect of your life. When you treat yourself as valuable, you unconsciously communicate that to others. You carry yourself differently, you make decisions differently, and people respond differently. You may not say the words, "I know my worth," but everything about your presence begins to speak it. At this stage, some people wonder, if self-esteem is this powerful, does it mean I will never face rejection or failure once I build it? Jung would gently remind us that life will always include challenges. The difference is in how you interpret them. Someone with fragile, mask-based confidence might see failure as proof that they are worthless. But someone with integrated self-esteem sees failure as feedback, a lesson, a step on their unique path. They do not crumble, because their worth is not tied to a single outcome. Instead, they adjust, learn, and move forward with resilience. This resilience itself is magnetic. It shows others that you are not defined by circumstances, but by the depth of your character. Think about the kind of relationships this attracts. If you carry low self-esteem, you might settle for a partner who takes advantage of you or fails to respect your boundaries. Your unconscious belief of unworthiness acts like a magnet, pulling in those who confirm it. But as you elevate your self-esteem, you begin to resonate differently. You naturally set boundaries, not as walls of defense, but as healthy expressions of self-respect. You no longer chase people to validate you, and, ironically, this makes you more attractive. High-value people are drawn to those who value themselves. Your energy says, "I don't need someone to complete me. I am already whole. If you join me, it's because you add to my life, not because I can't live without you." This shift also applies to opportunities. If you believe you are undeserving of success, you might avoid applying for jobs, hesitate to showcase your talents, or reject chances out of fear. But with genuine self-esteem, you step into opportunities confidently. You no longer sabotage yourself. You recognize that you are not asking for something unreasonable. You are claiming what matches your value. This mindset not only changes what you pursue, but also what comes your way. People who make decisions, employers, collaborators, mentors, sense your energy, even if subconsciously. They recognize someone who believes in their own worth, and that recognition opens doors. Now, an important question arises. What about humility? Isn't there a danger that focusing on self-esteem turns into arrogance or narcissism? Jung made a clear distinction here. Arrogance is often the mask of insecurity. The arrogant person is overcompensating for a lack of true self-esteem by inflating themselves, constantly needing to prove superiority. Real self-esteem has no need for this. It doesn't need to prove, to boast, or to dominate. It is quiet, steady, and authentic. A truly self-respecting person can admit mistakes, can admire others without jealousy, and can offer kindness without feeling diminished. Humility and high self-esteem are not opposites. They are partners. Another insight Jung emphasized was that healing self-esteem often involves revisiting childhood wounds. Many of us carry invisible scars from moments when we were shamed, ignored, or rejected. Maybe you were told you weren't smart enough, or perhaps your emotions were dismissed as too much. These experiences plant seeds of doubt that grow into unconscious beliefs. I'm not good enough. I'm unlovable. I must hide who I really am. If left unexamined, these beliefs continue to shape your adult life. But here's the liberating truth. Those old judgments were never the ultimate truth. They were reflections of other people's limitations, fears, or ignorance. To build real self-esteem, you must reparent yourself. This means offering to your inner child what you didn't receive enough of: acceptance, love, patience, encouragement. When that old voice of criticism arises, you learn to replace it with a kinder, wiser voice. I see you. I accept you. You are enough as you are. At first, this feels unnatural, even forced, because you've been conditioned otherwise. But over time, this inner reparenting reshapes your psyche. It strengthens your foundation, making you less dependent on external validation. As you do this, your relationship with others transforms as well. You no longer demand that others fill the holes left by your childhood wounds. Instead, you meet them from a place of wholeness. This is perhaps the greatest gift of self-esteem. It not only changes how you see yourself, but it elevates every connection around you. Friends, partners, and colleagues no longer feel the pressure of carrying your worth. They simply enjoy your presence. And you, in turn, can enjoy theirs without desperation or fear. It's worth pausing to reflect on the spiritual dimension of this. Jung often spoke about the self, not just as a psychological center, but as something that connects us to a greater wholeness. He believed that when we build true self-esteem, we are not simply inflating our ego. We are aligning with the deeper self that is connected to the collective unconscious, to something larger than our individual story. In this sense, self-esteem is sacred. It is the recognition that you, as you are a unique expression of life itself. And life does not create anything unworthy. When you embrace this truth, you begin to live differently. You speak differently. You carry yourself with a quiet dignity that needs no explanation. And as you live this way, the world responds. You notice synchronicities, opportunities, and relationships aligning with your inner state. This is not magic or coincidence. It is the natural law of resonance. You attract what you are ready to receive. One of the most practical ways Jung suggested we come closer to our true self is through the practice of listening to dreams. Dreams, he said, are the language of the unconscious. They bypass the mask of the persona and reveal what is hidden beneath. If you are struggling with self-esteem, your dreams might show you neglected aspects of yourself. Perhaps an image of a child needing care, or a figure that challenges you to stand stronger. Paying attention to these messages allows you to see what your conscious mind has been ignoring. And the more you listen, the more you realize that your unconscious is not your enemy, but your guide. Imagine a person who constantly doubts themselves in waking life. In their dreams, they may encounter symbols of power, strength, or victory, almost as if their psyche is reminding them of the strength they have forgotten. Another person who overcompensates with arrogance may dream of being exposed, vulnerable, or humbled, as if their psyche is gently urging them to embrace authenticity. In both cases, the dreams are attempts to balance the psyche, to lead the individual toward wholeness, and toward a self-esteem that is grounded in truth. But listening to dreams is only one step. Jung also emphasized active imagination, allowing ourselves to dialogue with these inner figures, to give space to the voices within us we have silenced. For example, if you have a recurring inner critic telling you that you are not good enough, you might sit quietly, imagine this critic as a figure, and begin a conversation. Ask it, "Why do you keep saying this? What are you afraid of?" You may be surprised at the answers that arise. Sometimes the critic is not truly against you, but is trying, in its misguided way, to protect you from failure or rejection. By engaging with it instead of suppressing it, you begin to transform the relationship. The critic loses its power, and your self-esteem grows stronger, because you no longer fear the inner voice. These practices bring us face to face with the shadow. And here lies one of Jung's most powerful insights. What you resist not only persists, it controls you. If you resist your anger leaks out in passive-aggressive ways. If you resist your vulnerability, it shows up as coldness or detachment. If you resist your fear, it drives your decisions from the background. But when you face these emotions directly, they lose their grip. You realize they are not monsters, but messengers. And by integrating them, you gain not only freedom, but also strength. Let's take anger as an example. Many people with low self-esteem are afraid of anger. They were taught as children that anger is bad, that expressing it makes you unlovable. So they suppress it. The result? They become overly accommodating, unable to say no, constantly putting others before themselves. On the surface, they seem kind, but inside, resentment builds. They attract people who exploit their lack of boundaries. But when they finally acknowledge and integrate their anger, they discover that anger is not just destructive, it is protective. It is the force that says, "This is not acceptable. I deserve better." Suddenly, their relationships shift because they no longer tolerate what devalues them. This is how integrating the shadow directly boosts self-esteem and changes what we attract. Another shadow element that often undermines self-esteem is vulnerability. Many of us equate vulnerability with weakness. We fear that if we reveal our true feelings, others will reject us. So we build walls, pretend to be strong, and hide our needs. But Jung would remind us that the parts we hide contain immense value. Vulnerability is not weakness. It is the gateway to authenticity. When you allow yourself to be seen as you are, flaws and all, you break free from the exhausting game of maintaining the persona. And in doing so, you give yourself permission to belong as you are. This belonging, this self-acceptance, is the foundation of self-esteem. Now, let's connect this back to attraction. Think of someone you admire deeply, not because they are perfect, but because they are real. Maybe they share their struggles honestly, yet carry themselves with dignity. Maybe they are unafraid to laugh at their mistakes or admit when they are learning. This kind of authenticity is irresistible. It draws people in because it reflects a freedom we all long for. When you embody this, you naturally attract healthier relationships because you are no longer performing for acceptance. You are simply being. The truth is, much of what we call attraction is unconscious recognition. People sense in you the qualities they either resonate with or need to learn from. If you radiate self-respect, people who lack respect will either rise to meet you or drift away. If you embody authenticity, those who thrive on manipulation will find no foothold. You begin to notice that your world reorganizes itself, not overnight, but steadily around the new standard you hold for yourself. And this is not about control, it's about alignment. You no longer beg the world to treat you better. You treat yourself better, and the world follows. There is also a paradox in self-esteem that Jung highlighted. To truly value yourself, you must also confront your smallness. This does not mean belittling yourself, but recognizing that you are not the center of the universe. The ego wants to believe it is everything, but the self knows it is part of something larger. When you realize this, you find humility without shame. You can say, "I am not perfect, but I am valuable. I am one thread in the vast tapestry of life, and that makes me essential." This paradox, knowing both your limits and your worth, creates a self-esteem that is neither inflated nor fragile. It is balanced. Another powerful insight Jung offered was the idea of projection. He explained that what we deny in ourselves, we often project onto others. If you secretly dislike your own vulnerability, you may judge others as weak. If you reject your own ambition, you may resent those who chase success. Projection is a way the unconscious tries to show us what we need to integrate. So, if you want to boost your self-esteem, pay attention to your judgments. Ask yourself, What in this person triggers me? Is it possible that this reflects something in me I haven't accepted? This doesn't excuse bad behavior from others, but it does give you the power to reclaim your projections and use them for growth. The more you integrate these projected qualities, the less reactive you become, and the more grounded your self-esteem grows. Let's also talk about boundaries, because they are the practical expression of self-esteem. Without boundaries, self-esteem remains theoretical. Boundaries are the way you communicate your worth to the world. They say, "This is how I expect to be treated. This is what I will and will not accept." Many people struggle with setting boundaries because they fear rejection. But rejection of your boundaries is not a loss. It is clarity. It shows you who respects your worth and who does not. And when you stand by your boundaries, you send a message not only to others but also to yourself. I matter. My needs matter. Every time you honor your boundaries, your self-esteem strengthens because you are living in alignment with your inner truth. Boundaries also reshape attraction. Imagine two people. The first has no clear boundaries. They say yes to everything, tolerate mistreatment, and bend to others' will. The second knows their worth and sets limits with calm confidence. Who will attract healthier, more balanced relationships? The second, without question. People may test boundaries, but they respect those who maintain them. And those who refuse to respect them often leave, which is not a loss, but a liberation. This is how self-esteem acts as a filter, allowing only what you deserve into your life. Of course, building boundaries and self-esteem does not mean becoming rigid or closed off. It means being flexible without abandoning yourself. Jung often spoke of balance, the union of opposites. Self-esteem thrives not in extremes, but in integration. Too much rigidity becomes arrogance. Too much flexibility becomes weakness. True self-esteem flows between the two, adapting as needed, but always anchored in self-respect. At this point, you may be wondering, how do I begin applying all of this in daily life? The answer lies in small, consistent practices. Start by observing your inner dialogue. How do you speak to yourself when you make a mistake? Is it with cruelty or compassion? Each moment of self-talk is an opportunity to build or break your self-esteem. Choose kindness, not as a cliché, but as a discipline. When you catch yourself saying, "I'm worthless," replace it with, "I made a mistake, but I am learning." When you hear, "I don't deserve this," replace it with, "I am worthy of growth and fulfillment." These shifts may feel subtle, but over time they rewire the foundation of how you see yourself. Another practice is to honor your small victories. Many people with low self-esteem dismiss their achievements, always moving the goalpost further. But Jung taught that wholeness is found in the ordinary, not just the extraordinary. If you set a boundary today, celebrate it. If you spoke kindly to yourself instead of harshly, acknowledge it. These moments accumulate, building a steady sense of self-worth. Self-esteem is not built in one grand leap. It is built in countless daily acts of honoring yourself. Finally, surround yourself with environments that reflect your worth. This does not mean avoiding challenge or discomfort, but it means choosing relationships, work, and communities that respect you. Jung believed that outer life mirrors inner life. If you constantly tolerate environments that diminish you, your psyche absorbs that message. But if you place yourself where you are valued, it reinforces your self-esteem. And as your esteem grows, you will naturally gravitate toward places that align with your worth. By now, you can see that self-esteem is not something that can be handed to you from the outside. It is not a prize, not a social approval score, and not even a fleeting feeling. It is a state of being that emerges from within, from the integration of all your parts, from your willingness to accept both light and shadow. And the more you practice this, the more your life begins to rearrange itself around the standard you set. But let's take this journey one step further and explore how self-esteem ties into the deeper process of transformation that Jung called individuation. Individuation is the path of becoming whole. It is not about becoming perfect, but about becoming yourself, fully, authentically, and unapologetically. Jung described individuation as a lifelong process of bringing unconscious material into consciousness, of reconciling opposites within the psyche, and of realizing the unique potential that only you can embody. Self-esteem plays a vital role in this process because without it, you remain trapped in the persona, the mask created for approval. The persona might win applause, but it does not nourish the soul. Only when you step beyond it, when you dare to embrace all parts of yourself, do you begin to live as the individual you truly are. This journey is not always comfortable. In fact, it often begins with discomfort, with the shattering of illusions you once held. Perhaps you realize that the career you pursued to impress others does not fulfill you. Perhaps you notice that the relationships you built on shallow confidence no longer sustain you. At first, this can feel like a crisis, but Jung would say that these crises are necessary. They are signals that the soul is asking for more. And when you respond to that call, when you begin the work of individuation, you discover a kind of self-esteem that cannot be shaken by external losses. Imagine someone who has built their entire identity around being admired for success. The moment they lose that success, their world collapses. But someone who has built their identity around authenticity, who has faced their shadow and embraced their wholeness, will remain steady even if success fades. They may grieve the loss, but their self-worth does not disappear with it. This is why Jung considered individuation not just a psychological luxury, but a spiritual necessity. Without it, you remain at the mercy of life's ups and downs. With it, you stand rooted like a tree, swaying with the wind but never uprooted. Now, let's reflect on how this depth of self-esteem transforms the way you attract relationships. When you are incomplete within, you unconsciously look for others to fill the gaps. You might chase partners who give you fleeting validation, even if they mistreat you. You might accept friendships that drain you because you fear loneliness more than disrespect. But when you individuate, when you learn to meet your own needs and honor your own worth, you approach relationships differently. You no longer need someone to complete you. Instead, you invite others to share in the wholeness you have already built. This shift is profound. It means that you no longer attract relationships out of desperation, but out of resonance. Those who come into your life are not there to fill your wounds, but to grow with you, to mirror the esteem you already hold within yourself. Toxic dynamics fade, because they can no longer find space to take root in you. And if they do appear, you recognize them quickly and walk away, because your boundaries are clear. This is how self-esteem becomes not only a shield but a magnet, protecting you from what you do not deserve while drawing in what aligns with your truth. The same applies to opportunities. When your self-esteem is fragile, you hesitate to step forward, to claim the roles, jobs, or paths that excite you. Fear of failure or rejection keeps you small. But when your esteem is rooted in authenticity, you no longer see failure as a verdict on your worth. You see it as part of the path, and because of that, you take more courageous steps. You apply for the role. You share your ideas. You pursue the dream. Even if rejection comes, you remain grounded, because you know that your worth is not on trial. This courage opens doors. Others sense it, and the opportunities that resonate with your value begin to find you. This leads us to another Jungian insight, synchronicity. Jung observed that when people align with their true selves, meaningful coincidences begin to appear, events that seem too perfectly timed to be random. You might think of a friend just as they call. You might stumble upon a book that answers the exact question you were wrestling with. You might meet someone unexpectedly who offers precisely the opportunity you needed. Jung saw these not as mere accidents, but as reflections of the deeper connection between the psyche and the world. When your inner world changes, the outer world responds. This is another way self-esteem shapes attraction, not by forcing outcomes, but by aligning your inner state with external events. So far, we have explored how self-esteem is shaped by shadow work, individuation, boundaries, vulnerability, and authenticity. But let's bring this all together with practical reflections you can carry forward. Begin by noticing where, in your life, you are still wearing a mask. Do you pretend to be more confident than you are? Do you hide your true feelings to avoid rejection? Do you stay silent when you want to speak? Each of these is an invitation to return to yourself. The more you drop the mask, the more your true self shines through, and with it, your real self-esteem. Second, ask yourself, what parts of me have I disowned? What qualities do I judge harshly in myself or others? Write them down, reflect on them, and consider how they might actually hold hidden value. For instance, if you reject your sensitivity, perhaps it is also the source of your empathy. If you reject your ambition, perhaps it is also the source of your creativity. Integrating these parts is not about excusing destructive behavior, but about reclaiming the gifts hidden in the shadow. Each step of integration builds a deeper foundation for self-esteem. Third, practice boundaries as daily rituals. Boundaries are not just about saying no to others. They are also about saying yes to yourself. Protect your time. Protect your energy. Protect your dreams. Each time you honor a boundary, you affirm your worth. And with each affirmation, your self-esteem grows stronger. Fourth, nurture your inner child. Remember those old wounds that told you you were not enough? Speak to them with compassion. Imagine the younger version of yourself and tell them what they needed to hear. You are worthy. You are loved. You matter. This practice may feel strange at first, but it is powerful. It rewrites the scripts of the past and creates a new foundation for the future. Finally, trust the process. Self-esteem is not built overnight. It is not a straight line, but a spiral. You will face setbacks, doubts, and moments where old patterns resurface. But each time you return to awareness, each time you choose authenticity over persona, each time you honor your worth, you move closer to wholeness. The journey itself is the reward, because with each step, you become more yourself. And as you become more yourself, you begin to see the secret Jung wanted us to realize, that the outer world is a mirror of the inner world. When you carry shame inside, you attract shame outside. When you carry worth inside, you attract worth outside. Life responds to the frequency you emit. This is not mystical exaggeration, but a psychological truth. People sense it. Opportunities align with it. Relationships reflect it. And when your self-esteem is rooted in authenticity, what you attract will always match what you deserve. Think back on the times in your life when you accepted less than you deserved. Perhaps it was a relationship where you settled for crumbs of affection. Perhaps it was a job where your talents were overlooked. Perhaps it was friendships where you gave endlessly but received little in return. In those moments, your unconscious belief was, "This is all I'm worth." But as you begin to see your true value, as you integrate your shadow and honor your wholeness, you will no longer settle. You will no longer tolerate what diminishes you. Instead, you will naturally, quietly, and firmly align with what reflects your inner worth. This does not mean life will become perfect or that you will never face challenge, but it means that you will face challenges from a place of strength rather than weakness. It means that you will no longer be tossed about by every opinion, every rejection, every loss. You will remain anchored in yourself, and that anchor will guide you through everything. And this is the essence of Jung's teaching on self-esteem. It is not about becoming someone else. It is about becoming who you already are. It is about peeling away the masks, embracing the shadows, and standing whole. When you do this, you stop chasing validation. You stop begging for love. You stop fearing rejection. You live from your center. And from that center, you naturally attract only what you deserve, because you have already recognized that you are deserving. So, as we close this exploration, remember the journey you are invited to take. It begins with awareness, seeing where you wear the mask. It deepens with shadow work, integrating the parts you have rejected. It expands with boundaries, honoring your worth in the world. It heals with compassion, reparenting the wounds of the past. And it culminates in individuation, living as your whole, authentic self. This is the secret to boosting your self-esteem and attracting only what you deserve. Not a quick fix, not a surface trick, but a lifelong path of becoming. And if you commit to this path, if you choose each day to return to yourself, you will notice the change. You will notice that the voices of doubt grow quieter. You will notice that the relationships in your life feel more balanced. You will notice that opportunities align with your true self. And most importantly, you will notice that you walk with a quiet strength, a dignity that cannot be shaken, because it does not come from outside, it comes from within. This is the gift Jung wanted us to see, that true self-esteem is not about proving you are enough. It is about realizing you always were.